Hi, good night, and welcome to the Jamaica Technology and Digital Alliance Tech Talk Tuesdays. It's a pleasure having you here with us as we speak about reshaping tomorrow, the role of digital transformation in future proofing your business. Now, tonight we have some heavy hitters on our panel, right? I know some of you may have seen some of them at this tech conference, but I'm so excited to learn from them. So we're going to start with the heavy hitter, the youngest in the group, Mr. Craig Powe, CEO at Adtelligent.
Hi, hi, hi.
Thank you so much, Craig. Always a pleasure. Juna Darrell, Director of Sales, Optimity Group.
Yes, indeed. Good day, everyone. Happy to be here. Thank you, Alexia.
Ricardo Ebanks, Chief Digital Officer, GraceKennedy Financial Group.
Good day, everyone. Thank you.
And Bianca Wells, Digital Innovation Manager, VM Group.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks to JTDA for having me back.
Right. Thank you so much. No, we're going to change it up. We're going to make it a little bit interesting tonight. We want to hear from each of them so they can tell you their experience and why you should listen earnestly to what they have to say with regards to digital transformation and how you can future-proof your business. We are going to start with Bianca.
Sure. So while today I'm working as the Digital Innovation Manager for the VM Group, my career started a couple of decades ago. I've had a generalist technology career. I've worked in the public sector and the private sector. Started out as a software developer, eventually moved into more general and project management before beginning work with startups and entrepreneurs. And that was actually my segue into corporate innovation. So I've seen digital transformation happen from the inside out in various industries, which it's been an interesting few decades to say the least.
Great. Thank you so much, Bianca. Craig, tell us a little bit about your journey.
Well, I did study computer science in college, even though I don't do any coding on a day-to-day basis. So I do have that background in terms of a technical background. I worked in computer science jobs, but I started my business about, call it 6 7 years ago, Adtelligent, which is a digital marketing agency first and foremost, but also a traditional agency with a lot of digital technology that we do implement for large companies and government. And basically, it's the customer facing stuff, things that would be online. So, like a referral program, we might have coded those things. Not me personally, but of course, I do work with the companies and the teams to implement them. So, I have a lot of experience with, I would say, large corporates putting in digital facing, customer facing systems, marketing the products, explaining to people how it actually works, because I'm on the marketing side of it. So the instructional videos, having people actually use the things that you install and pay for, because sometimes people buy systems and nobody uses it. And I work with both the government and private companies. I've worked with medium businesses. I've built websites of all shapes and sizes, from financial companies on the larger side, like a bank or a credit union, to medium-sized businesses like home and things. And how do you get the ordering system online? So I have a lot of experience there. I do know what a lot of businesses are missing from just working on the outside, because I can come in and kind of say that. And then my father was the president of Jamaica Computer Society and has been a stalwart in the technology industry for a lot of time. So all those conversations that I would have seen happening, I do have a little bit of that knowledge from him. So there's that. And then my specialty is really focusing on, right now, Latin America. As you would have said earlier, I put on a conference which had people flying in from Latin America to cover a lot of journalists. We had, I think, 16 journalists flying from all of South America to cover our conference, basically introducing Jamaican business owners to the concept of how do you export to LATAM, which I do export. So I export digital marketing services to Panama, Peru, and Colombia. And basically doing the exact same thing I would do for a company here in Jamaica, but doing that aspect in that country using things like Google Translate, ChatGPT to kind of cover the language barriers between my employees and that, but it's the same exact thing. So I run digital systems in my business. I install digital systems. I think that's a good enough background of why you should listen to me.
All right. Thanks so much, Craig. And added to our panel is Ricardo Allen, CEO of One-on-One Educational Services. So One-on-One, forgive me, Ricardo, look like I'm adding so much more to your company's name, right? Having known so much about it, we're just asking if you can quickly give some person's insight as to why you are a thought leader within the digital transformation space.
Right. No. Thank you so much for having me. And good evening, everyone, colleagues. I hope everyone is hearing me quite clear. I'm actually on the way to try to catch a flight, and I said let me just connect because there's just so many things that I just want to share. But just to give you a background, as the founder of one of the Caribbean's leading education technology company, growing the company from I would say about 2 to 3 team members to I would say about 70 team members process employing quite a number of team members as well. One of the things we've had to figure out is how to put in place the processes, that will ensure that at 70 employees or team members or companies can operate. One of the things that the board always kind of shares with me is this idea that, what happens if Ricardo, God forbid, gets hit by a bus and, he's, not here anymore? What happens in the business? How does the business continue? So one of the things that we look at is effectively how do we put in place processes, not necessarily people, so that the business of one-on-one can continue. Outside of that, one of the things that we do is not just for ourselves, but we work with governments to digitally transform their education system. What we mean by this is not just a matter of digitalizing items and scanning documents and uploading them, but just more or less understanding the processes for the education system. Currently we're working with Bahamas, for example, and Jamaica too. But in Bahamas, we've managed to take every process that they run prior to COVID, and we've managed to make a digital process out of that. Now, just imagine the Minister of Education being able to sit down and understand how many students are at school, what are they learning, who is late, who is at risk, that sort of thing, how many desks and chairs in the classroom. This is data that they can use to move things forward. And the example of why we went to Bahamas is very interesting. Post-Dorian, if you remember, it was 2019. A lot of the schools lost their records, school records, because they got flooded out. And they did not have the digital record for these students. So they had to start from scratch in a lot of respects. Some of them were fine, some of them weren't. And so by having this now in place, anything that may happen, God forbid, business can continue. And that's what is of digitalizing education, taking it online so that the business of education can continue.
All right. Thank you so much, Ricardo. Forgive me. Thank you all so much. Right? Ricardo Banks?
Yes. All right. So my journey started in high school at Wolmer's Boys. And in those days, it was computers were being introduced, and you had to vie to get an opportunity to learn information technology. And there were several things around me at the time that told me that I had to be a part of this. I don't know if Craig even knows about this, but there was a course that you had to go to learn how to use the library, right? Library science, where they had to tell you this is how you get the data. You take the pictures, and this is how you find the information to do your projects. And I didn't know what, but I knew that could not have been the future. Thank God for Google a few years later, right? So my journey started from there, and it has taken me across several financial institutions working on internet banking, mobile banking, ABM technology, digital mortgage journeys. It's really been a fun journey. And currently at the GraceKennedy Financial Group, we're focusing on the Western Union process for persons in Jamaica and to have that be a digital process. So we're saying that persons will have the option of going to the location if you want to collect cash, but hey, suppose you want to collect it digitally at 10 o'clock at night and get your money right away. We're giving you that option as well. And that is certainly a transformation of the business and the experience for our customers. And that's something our team at GK is very focused and excited about right now.
Thank you so much, Ricardo. And Junior, just in a nutshell, tell us what you do at, Optimity Group.
Well, thanks for that, Alexia, and I'm very happy to be here. I like to say that my career in tech is one where tech chose me, not so much me choosing tech, and I'm very grateful because it has been richly rewarding. The fact is, I've spent over 20 years in tech in various roles, mostly at the leadership level and focused on sales. So, for instance, I bring a rich background when it comes on to the document management industry, where I was able to help organizations improve workflows and efficiency, moving from paper to digital and back. And especially during COVID, that became a point of reference for everything. Being with Optimity Group since June, I must say I'm seeing where things are just in overdrive, because now I'm able to play with the latest and greatest in modern technologies, ranging from artificial intelligence, fintech, IT consultancy and infrastructure projects, as well as cashless payments, and of course, cybersecurity and data privacy and protection. So I hope that qualifies me to be at this seat to be able to discuss the matter of digital transformation with such an esteemed panel. But nevertheless, I'm happy to share.
Okay, thank you so much, Junior. No, we've heard digital transformation all over the place. The past 2-3 years, digital transformation. What is digital transformation, and why is it crucial for businesses in today's rapidly changing landscape? Bianca, you're ready to give us some insight as to why it is important.
Sure. Well, the first thing that I usually point out to people when we start talking about digital transformation is don't even think about the digital part. It's a transformation. You're really trying to change every aspect of your business, and you're doing it through digital technology. So it's more than just digitizing paper, but you're really trying to change how the business works at its core. Why that's important? It's the way the world is going. Technology shifts are happening all around us. Consumer behaviors are changing. Your competitors are doing it. There are so many drivers that are pushing you to really look at how your business operates and how you can take advantage of technologies that exist. And if you are forward thinking enough and really looking ahead to the future, then you also are going to recognize that technology has to be a core part of the way that your business works. And so that digital transformation is really the process of how you get there, to embedding digital technology at the very center of your business, regardless of your industry.
Okay, thanks, Bianca. I really want to touch on Rickardo from GK. You mentioned, what you guys are doing with Western Union. We know that we have a lot of elderly persons who utilize Western Union, and I know you're trying to digitize and what you're trying to do. So just give us some more information regarding that, or what you'd recommend, the process of where you're coming from to where you see it going in the future.
Right. So the first thing that I would say is that a lot of times when companies pursue technology projects, it starts as this inside out thing, right? Like we're looking at it from our perspective. When you're doing truly digital projects, it actually starts with a customer perspective. So it starts with an understanding of what are the customer pain points in a journey with your business. And from that understanding, you then design the experiences that will remove those pain points for those customers. Now, yes, there are senior persons who use the Western Union service, have relied on it for for generations, and they will probably love to have the service continue exactly as it is for the next 20 or 30 years. And one thing that I would say to businesses is that recognizing that you have different customer segments and some customers that like a certain interaction, you have to be careful that you don't try to force them into a box that doesn't fit for them. So we are building a digital platform for the person who is right now entering into college and they don't want to have that kind of physical interaction. They would much rather to do it on their phone, at their own time, and to be able to do that payment digitally. And so we're facilitating those persons, and we're ensuring that every customer has that ability to access the services of the business the way that works for them, right? So that keeps those senior persons able to get the service that they like, while you're creating a path for persons who want that digital experience.
Thank you so much, Ricardo. No, Ricardo, one-on-one, you touched on it a little bit when you're giving your opening about how digitizing in education, and there are a lot of records that were lost. There's a lot of flooding. Where do you see, in regards to the education sector, utilizing digital transformation under those technologies the way forward?
Yeah, I mean, no, that's an excellent question. I think there are two ways that I like to think about this problem, right? And as Ricardo from GK mentioned, whatever you think about, you have to think about the clients, right? Now, in education, who is the client? Usually, the stakeholders are students, parents, right? Teachers is a big part of that. You got external stakeholders as well who have an interest in education and education data. And then you have the Ministry of Education, and you have all of these kind of subsectors of the economy or the education system. Now, when we look at digital transformation in schools, there are a myriad of things that we can look at. But you can put them in two buckets. And here are the buckets. One is the administrative side of things, and two is the learning side. On the administration piece, that's kind of what I touched on earlier, right? There's no school in 2023 that should be, for example, collecting sign-in data of teachers using a book. Currently, the education system is governed by the Education Act, I believe, of 1976, which stipulates that you must have this physical record. So even though a school may want to move forward, they can't, simply because, for example, they have this in place. Now, the point is that we need to kind of bring those schools to a point, but at the same time, the regulations need to change to be of that time, because they can't move without the regulation. So on one side, you have the administration side, and every school needs to move in that direction. Why is that important? Because we can now get data, and you can only improve what you can track. That's something I learned very early in business. You can improve what you can track. You can't track it, you can't improve it. So on the admin side, we need data on just about everything that is administrative. Signing records of teachers, student attendance data, that sort of thing. Health records, those things, we can have them, we can track things, we can see point improvements, improve. On the learning side, very important. I give you a little story. In 2013, One-on-One invested in creating content for the high school curriculum. We invested quite a lot of money, probably close to $100 million. In COVID, the same high school content that we managed to digitalize and create, not just a digital version, but an optimized delivery of these content for the CSEC curriculum. In COVID, all the schools got locked down. We had the content to be able to deliver that. What we would have done in 2013 future-proofed us from COVID, even though we didn't know COVID was coming. And so my thought is, we need to ensure that we have an education system that is sufficiently agile and fluid to switch among modalities, meaning whether it is a physical modality, whether it is a remote modality, or whether it is hybrid, so that wherever the child is, they can continue to learn. Now, what that requires is a lot of investment in content, a lot of investment in ensuring that all of these things are there. Now, a big one that is a personal pet peeve of mine is your textbooks. I have two daughters, and I spend quite a lot of money on their textbook. Not to mention that they carry a big bag to school with all of these textbooks in it. Now, the ministry has moved to implement an e-textbook platform, but again, not all schools are using it. And these are the things that we need to look at, right? Digital textbooks, it saves everybody. The parents save, everybody save, and more importantly, again, if we have a digital record, a child has a tablet one time and can have all the textbook for all their lifetime. So those are three areas that I think are low-hanging fruit. On the teacher side, there are a number of things too, but I'll leave it at that.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much for that, Ricardo. I think everyone learned a lot. That sometimes the technology moves a bit faster than the law. So I think that is the challenge. But our next question is and this is for you, Craig, and then I want Junior to answer. What are the potential challenges or roadblocks businesses might encounter when embarking on a digital transformation journey, and how can they overcome them?
So I think what Ricardo was saying, well, both Ricardos are saying, is actually perfect. I think the biggest thing I've experienced working with companies to put in any sort of technology for them when it comes to marketing or an experience is really the people, especially for old organizations. And I mean the people, the internal people. Sometimes they're bored, sometimes they're other managers, sometimes the IT team, sometimes the IT communication with the thing, and sometimes it's the customers. It's really the mindset. The law itself is also the people. Maybe the people who wrote the law, they're not even around, and the people not necessarily focusing on that law. There's so many things. But in a country or a company that's digital first, that means like they're started over and fresh. Whatever person comes in usually joins a system where they're digital first and it's digital first approach. So the people aren't necessarily the backlog because they're used to just making those changes and being agile and flexible. But a lot of the older companies in Jamaica, older systems, when you talk about a government or whatever, they have people that have been there before. They have people that probably took that library course earlier, and now you're telling them, yeah, man, things change now. ChatGPT, Google this, whatever. And it's a behavior that you have to get them to do, and they're just not used to it. And you have to do internal marketing to get them to believe in it and buy into it. You have to do external marketing. And I think that's the biggest problem I've seen when somebody wants to put in a new technology and you've just have years of all this behavior. I loved what Ricardo said over there about the Bahamas having a rare opportunity because a hurricane mashed up everything. But you have to think about it. It took a hurricane to come destroy everything for the people to say, wow, how we should have a digital record of things. It's like, oh, wow, the water wash away everything. And they're like, time to come anew. But without dramatic moments like that, you don't necessarily see companies making those type of change or investments. So my thing is the people, the mentality and the mindset of the people who are in charge of implementing these things. You have times where I've seen government hire younger people or hire older, bright people that are in technology, and they can get burnt out because of just the negativity when you're trying to make these changes. And then you also see sometimes when people hire tech people internally to make these changes, you might not get the support. So again, biggest robot people. How do you fix that? I think you have to have more communication with C-suite. So IT managers and IT transformation managers have to report directly into the C-suite. I think that's very important. I think they actually also have to have time with the board to present and have board support. So basically, they need to be seen as equivalent to any other type of thing. I think they need to have a marketing resource or a comms resource in their large IT departments to basically explain things. Somebody also needs to explain to people that content isn't just only for customers. Content is also for your internal customers. So that way you can have that built out when you're implementing new systems or new stuff like that. And basically, IT can't be seen as like a black box that's something that you pay for and you have to just write a check to. It has to be seen as the first and the most thriving part of your business that will actually make you the most money if you invest in it. It is probably the cheapest thing to do if you invest correctly. And I just think that's where businesses that make tons of money, like I think Facebook, I think Microsoft, I think Google, I think OnlyFans has like 59 employees and makes billions of US dollars. So every company in Jamaica does nothing compared to what OnlyFans does with 59 employees who are tech first because they're scaling to the infinite. And so if you start thinking about scale, which you can only scale with technology, Because I think you're talking about your thing there, Ricardo, with Western Union. I used Western Union before to send some money to my sister, send some money to one of my friends in a different country, and the first time I went down there, I went to the physical location. I was like, yo, this is paying people this every day, and I'm tech first. And immediately, I had a Spanish teacher in Spain who showed me how to send money to him using a software called Wise. Now, Wise has never run a marketing campaign ever, like zero. They've never done anything, and they're growing like crazy. They're making billions of dollars already. They're profit positive because they're a tech first money transfer platform. And I have sent so much money through Wise, ridiculous amounts. And nobody gets to see it. It has all these great records. I've sent money to the US, to Colombia, to Peru, to all these countries. It lands immediately in the bank account, and I can actually use my credit card to do the transaction. That to me is where companies have to go, because if you're in Jamaica and you think, well, you know what, I'm in this land where everybody's anti-tech or whatever. No, the future is young people, and young people are not actually super tied to your own brand. And these American or European or wherever companies, because it doesn't matter where they're from, if they're good at technology, they'll eventually be able to like get into your market without you knowing. So nobody knows how much money I am sending through Wise. Nobody knows how much money I'm sending through Interactive Brokers, which I keep majority of my money in as overseas as a broker online. And we're talking about multiples of tens of thousands of US, multiple of this, and that's just gone out of the system because they're tech first. So again, the people might be the holdback, but as you said, your competitors are going to do things. And if you don't show them the actual possibility, so you show them things, I think things are going to be hard for people to do.
Great. Thank you for that, Craig. I think you opened up, some more questions when you pose, do you believe, Junior? I still wanted to answer that question, but I'm going to throw this question over to our panelists. Do you believe when it comes to digital transformation that we are more reactive? And just touching on what Craig says, how can we be more proactive in saying, getting the buy-in from your C-suite managers, the board? As Craig mentioned, we've seen these challenges within the tech community. The IT manager has this great idea, pitches it to his director, but the director doesn't truly understand why it is important until something happens. Ricardo from One-on-One mentioned a flood. Why do you think that is a cultural thing? Because we see, especially in this generation, where we have multiple groups working together, Gen Z, millennials, possibly baby boomers. How can we get persons to really buy in and put, as Craig aptly put it, digital first thinking, tech first, to fix all these problems that may arise? And I want to hear from Bianca as well, but Junior, because we know Optimity doing a lot of innovative stuff, so I definitely want to hear.
Absolutely, and thanks for that, Alexia. I mean, I'm 100% aligned. The biggest challenge is going to always come from the people. That's just part and parcel of the game in being in tech. And let's also just understand and appreciate that we're all humans, of course, so we know that it's within our nature to naturally resist change. So, for instance, I've heard the stories about when MS Tech Solutions was rolling out the Jamaica High project. It wasn't just about setting up cameras, for instance. We had to help in the efforts to get people to understand and, most importantly, trust the system. Now, we would have seen how that has proven to be a very useful tool in for crime fighting and investigations, etc. But naturally, it would have had its own fair share of resistance, so to speak. And I mean, that's on the MS Tech side. The reality is, I'm going to use an example. I met with a client very recently, a very prominent brand here in Jamaica. And you would think that with what is happening now on the cybersecurity side, that when I asked the question about, tell me more about your current cybersecurity arrangements, they said, let me not even attempt to answer that. The answer is really, we don't have anything. Still we're functioning with passwords and stuff. And I'm like, why? No, the IT persons know better. They have been advocating. They have been trying to do this and get it done. The C-suite persons, of course, have their own philosophy, their own mindset and stuff. So we took it on as a personal project, really, to work with that IT team to really help them to get the C-suite to understand that, first of all, I'm not here to sell anything. I'm here really to partner with you guys so you can stay out of the media. I would have seen in the recent media reports various prominent Jamaican businesses being impacted by cyber attacks. I mean, you look, for instance, what is happening now in Bermuda. The entire government system had a very vicious cyber attack for which they're slowly but surely picking up the pieces right now. So to get persons from the different generations to fully understand the need for digital transformation and that digital thinking first, and getting them to also trust it is always an adventure in faith. Let's put it that way. But I do think that with continued advocacy, education, letting persons recognize that, okay, this is not just within your best interest, but the best interest of the company and, of course, its clients. Because at the end of the day, your clients, when they come to you, they're buying, for instance, an insurance policy, for argument's sake. It is not just a policy they're buying from you, they're buying into a trust system that you are responsible for. They're in essence saying, here is my story, here is my data, you have a responsibility to protect it. So once we can shift the discussions outward of the organization and not make it not be a case where, oh, IT, them always want the latest and greatest technology, for them to recognize that there's a lot at stake for the business to be not just competitive, but relevant. I think that's always a good start. Continuous training, obviously, is going to be a big key to any digital transformation efforts and clearing those roadblocks from all levels. From every single person within the organization would require some amount of training and buy-in to be able to optimize the success of any digital transformation efforts. Because at the end of the day, what you want to do is to have that culture in place from the top down, bottom up, to foster and embrace innovation. It is not about having just about the latest and greatest technology, but more so what it's going to be able to do for you to inspire trust and confidence for your workers, your employees rather, and of course your customers. So there's a lot that needs to happen, but it first begins with an acknowledgement that we're all humans and we're going to naturally resist change. It's just really understanding where each of us are in terms of their understanding and appreciation for digital transformation, understanding where we need to go and bridging that gap through various tools.
Okay, thank you so much, Junior. You highlighted something that's really critical. As we go through the digital transformation process, data, customer information, and privacy is very important. What can companies do to protect that data? We know December 1st, we have the implementation of the Data Protection Act. So how can companies ensure they protect their data and customers' information during that time? You highlighted that some companies, their cybersecurity, they don't have the systems in place. And I'm also going to throw it out to Ricardo or anyone else who want to assist. What can they do? Because you tell us, okay, it would be like you're going to a business. Are you using ChatGPT? How are you transforming? There's so many programs, but how are they protecting the data? Because we know quite a few companies are not. I don't even know if they use password managers, to be honest. I don't know if they use,
Yes, yes.
And that is basic. I mean, when somebody leaves their organization, are they changing the passwords? So we may think because we're in the tech space that everybody knows these things. But the truth out there is that a lot of persons don't know. They have the information, as I say, in a book, customer number, accounts, and so in the process, Bianca mentioned in the
Yes.
process, what can we do, right? How can you get there? And Craig mentioned it, kind of highlighted the body. How can you tell somebody who's used to writing to put information in the cloud or, do these things? How can we
All right, I think, Alexia, your volume went down a bit, so I think you had directed that to me. It's very simple. I mean, I can write a book on this as well as anybody at Optimity Group because this is our bread and butter. But the best way I can summarize it is this. We have gone way past the industrial age, a very long time ago. we're in this age right now where data is the new goal. It's the new currency, really. So, I mean, just as well, we want to guard our precious goals and assets and stuff like that. It's the same, if not even more important with data. One of the common attacks that organizations face right now is ransomware. Ransomware, it's very prevalent, it's very disruptive, and the reality is, what are they trying to do there? They capture your data and hold a ransom of it, hold it ransom for you to pay money. That should tell you the value of data. And it's not so much the value that they, the bad actors, place on the data for themselves, is what it means to you, essentially. So there are several ways in which businesses would have to look at this and keep safe. I will just highlight just a few. For instance, you mentioned password managers. Password 123 and using one password for every single platform is never ever a good idea. You want to also ensure that you enable multi-factor authorization within your organization, such that you are able to have like a secret handshake beyond just the password or the traditional means of logging in or accessing data in place. You also want to ensure that you check for weak spots. And this is one of the reasons why I'm very much more appreciative of the Data Protection Act, because with weak spots in place, the best way to be able to identify these traditionally with organizations is to do regular vulnerability and penetration testing. And one of the things that I'm looking forward to that is it's gonna really force organizations to up the game and the frequency with which these are being done, because the bad actors out there, they're relentless. They are constantly evolving, constantly growing. Where you might think that you pass a penetration test back in 2021 and it's good, but we recommend you do that like every 6 months or at least a year, so you can actually understand where the vulnerabilities lie and move things forward. Training your team, for instance, making sure that everybody knows the basics, like not just clicking on any strange links or sharing passwords. That's actually very important. Ensuring that you have frequent backups in place and testing those backups to ensure that, heaven forbid, there is a disaster, that you can you can bank on the data that is being backed up to be able to restore business continuity, so to speak. Important also is that everybody knows the rules of the Data Protection Act, which is going to be far-reaching and more specific when you get down to an industrial level. I mean, the Data Protection Act implications for a small office that may be in tech, for instance, would be a little bit different than, say, a small doctor's office that is now treating with sensitive medical records. The burden of the responsibility becomes even more critical, because at the end of the day, any data breach there can, of course, compromise a lot of the integrity of the entire health system and, of course, the reputation of such practices. And, of course, having a plan, incident response planning. I mean, I must say I am seeing more and more individuals and more and more businesses coming forward to admit to data breaches rather than just sweep it under the carpet as if nothing exists. Because one way or another, it's going to come out. When these ransomware attackers put your data on the dark web, for instance, it is going to come out. So why not come forward, apply the principles of a sound, solid incident plan that will allow persons not just be aware, but also tell persons to safeguard their data even further. We each one help one, and that's really what it would be about. So there are a lot of methods that can be utilized to help strengthen the cybersecurity posture and data privacy posture of organizations. These are just a few. I'm eager to hear about Bianca's perspective on this, though. So over to you, Bianca.
All right. One question. So Jeff Waddington said, I just want to take this audience question. Jeff Waddington says, and I'm going to direct it to Bianca. Digital transformation requires experience and skill sets that are in global demand, and Jamaica continues to lose talent to other markets. How can these initiatives succeed in this environment?
Yeah, that is it is a tough one for us. We have been experiencing brain drain for decades, and it is only accelerating now in this global economy driven by digital technology in particular. So I absolutely agree with him that the skill sets and experience that we need for these kinds of transformations are the same ones that are in demand all around the world. And realistically, Jamaicans are more and more being able to not even leave, they're just staying here and they're working for companies outside of Jamaica. And so it's this virtual brain drain where they're still here, but they're not even available to our local labor market. It's an ongoing challenge. A big part of it is some of the same work that Ricardo is doing. It's making sure that we're embedding digital from the earliest stage so that we are capturing, some of that talent as they're joining the workforce. They're actually already part of that work stream. They're available to our markets. We're not necessarily waiting until people have finished a degree and three certifications before we're willing to hire them. We're starting to look at practical experience, not just the paper. How have they been building that experience, even as teenagers, even as students? Have they been interacting with digital technologies in a way that provides value to our business? So that's one, is capturing them in the workforce even earlier. Another part of it is companies realizing that same virtual brain drain does benefit us to an extent, in the sense that the entire global market is also available to us. No, it does, of course, come with its own resource challenges, which is that we may not always be able to pay at the level of other more developed markets. But there are other markets who are similar to ours where we may, in fact, be able to source human resources and access digital talent, because when we're now talking about working in a virtual environment, it does not have to be people who are based here, who are local to Jamaica, who are working for our companies and our businesses. So that's also something that we have to consider when we're hiring, is looking outside of our local space for that talent within our budgets, of course. And it's also just recognizing that sometimes it's going to be replacing some of our workers with technology. That is part of the transformation. There are jobs that we have needed in the past that can be replaced by systems, by technologies, and so making use of those where possible to help reduce the labor demand. And ideally for most businesses, what that really means is they can focus their labor needs on the more high value, directly revenue generating activities, which helps to then funnel money back into those investments that they can make into systems and technologies and higher value labor where they need it. So those would be my 3 suggestions, Jeff.
I want to respond as well to Jeff. I would say look at Ricardo to the bottom left over there, and also the other Ricardo, 2 publicly listed companies. I think that one of the ways to maybe get some of that talent, I hear a lot of noise somewhere. I don't know where it's coming from, like a alarm, but paying ahead, which is hard for a small entrepreneur, hard for a medium business. It's definitely hard for that. But for a Grace, for someone who can go publicly listed, I would say raising debt, having access to capital markets, taking capital in, or trying to raise some sort of equity investment from other successful business people, where you basically are able to pay ahead to kind of retain the talent. I think that's what you have to do. I think you also must recognize that most diaspora members are only in America because of opportunity and money, or in Canada. I'm a person who chose to be here, and I make decent money, but all my friends, if they could make whatever money they were making, or even 20, 30%, 40% left, like a man who makes 130K at Facebook or 200K at Facebook, if you can give him 80K to come to Jamaica, he would rather be here. But 80,000 US is a lot of money for a Jamaican company. But I'm sure if Grace and those guys said, you know what, we're going to just make the bite the bullet, or Ricardo says that when you raise the money, you can. So I think that's kind of how retaining, but also this flexibility, because those employees might, require some different types of flexibility. I've heard of some people that want to go beach during certain days, other things like that, or whatever. And in America, they can get a great salary and have a lot of flexibility, maybe Jamaica doesn't give that. So if you want to retain that talent, you definitely have to think about pay, which is hard for a small business. You have to think about the benefits, which again is different. But I wouldn't say it's impossible, because I think of JMB specifically and that story of them exporting to DR and bringing tons of talent back from Dominican Republic, their diaspora, to work in DR, training up the local ground. They only use maybe 3 or 4 employees outside of DR, outside the JMB Jamaica community, which one of them was from Chile that worked in Costa Rica, was a more developed. And then most of it is local talent. They do have a bigger labor pool over there, 11 million people, and it is harder for Spanish people to migrate to America just because there's a language barrier. So Jamaican people naturally can just say, yo, I'm going to Canada, I'm going to UK, I'm going to US. And if you think about it, British culture, Jamaican culture, it's easy for us to integrate. American culture, Jamaican culture, easy. Toronto, easy culture. You don't see the same level of brain drain rates, percentage rates. You might have more people overall from Latin America, but nowhere near the percentage of the population living overseas. So I'd also recommend, if you're hiring people, hire in the Spanish-speaking market, specifically Colombia, for programmers. I think they have a decent amount over there. I would also recommend people to Peru. I know Flow has a lot of programmers from Colombia, and they think they're fantastic, and they're cheaper than Jamaican programmers and easier to please. So that is also something. But finally, for me, I would say just the mindset. If we all think it's negative, it won't happen. We have to kind of just be like, yo, we're going to do it. It doesn't matter. It has to happen, and be positive. And then I have seen, even with my conference, Keys to Latam, a lot of stakeholders told me it was impossible to get people to think about export. People told me it was impossible to get people for Jamaican business to export. They said it was not possible. Jamaica can't export to Latin America. And, you know, if I took that as the answer, then that just wouldn't work. I kept on going. I found businesses who are exporting a crap ton of stuff from Jamaica to Latin America. Separate is exporting tons. So is Jamaica producers. They're like literally doing magical amount of money all across Latin America. You have Sidney Thwaites, new Jamie president. These guys' experiences direct opposite proof that it's possible. But they might talk some management and they might not be as interested. Might talk some government members, they might not think it's possible. But in reality, it's just the mindset. Now you show some people that it's possible. You're going to have calls from small business owners, medium business owners, large people saying, yeah, man, I think I can do it, because they see now from a real life story that it's there. So I think more stories, more social media. If GraceKennedy has a program, which I know you guys do, about bringing back diaspora to come there, you know, having them do some videos on social media. I moved back to Jamaica. I cut my salary by 40,000 US, but look how great my life is. I have a helper. I have this. Wow. You'd be surprised. You get applications like crazy. But that's the type of new thinking that we have to kind of do in order to break the old mindset. And if we do that, I think we'd be okay. But it's up to us, the kind of leaders in the space, to kind of just go ahead and do it and say, no matter what negativity is going on, we just say, you know what, I go into my program, we'll see what happens. And then we just show people after and say it worked.
All right, thank you so much, Craig. And I just want to add to that, Ricardo. In speaking to a lot of the newer generation, Gen Zs, Alphas, you know, sometimes they have such new names. I think we have to look on culture. Gone are the days where people want to be at office 5 days a week. So you may have to do a hybrid. Some persons want to just work remotely and chip in, come to visit the office once a month for a team collaboration. Look into that. What is the culture? I think, you know, this generation is now quiet quitting. So they are not waiting to say, okay, how long? They are looking at what is presented in the interview. So if you made certain promises in the interview, they are giving you up to a year to deliver on the promise. So, I mean, it's not the same, and we have to understand the culture. These people are applying to Indeed and staying, as Craig mentioned, and getting paid. So if you're not paying them at the rate, which we know their challenges, what are the other benefits? What are the other benefits that you can able to do? Probably some companies, you know, I don't know if one-on-one offer work from home or hybrid or daycare or more vacation days. What are you willing to do? I think look into that. That is what I say. Yes, Ricardo.
But by the way, I hope there is no noise in the background. There's no noise.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
All right, I have so much to add, but I'll keep it short, right? I give you an example. First of all, One and One has been a fully remote company since 2016. In 2020, I never forget my auditor called me and asked me, how is it that I monitor my team members if they are working all over the place? I went to a colleague of mine and I saw them having a Teams chat open with all the team members, and that's how they record that they're at work. The mentality of our people is that you monitor through seeing that a man is sitting at his desk, not realizing that he could be sitting there not doing anything. And so the idea that effectively you have to have someone at a physical location to do work is obsolete, it is backward, and might I say, it is not the right approach. Here's a better approach, right? You set goals for people, right? Establish very clear goals, right? And effectively judge them by that. If they do that in the morning, in the night, on a beach, I could not care less once it gets done. And that is how we kind of function. Now, I want to touch on something a little different, because the question was asked as it relates to how do you effectively, kind of stem the brain drain, keep our people here, that sort of thing. Here's a thought for you. The workforce currently is 1.3 million Jamaicans. There are 3 million people in Jamaica, 1.3 is in the workforce. I define the workforce as 16 years or older, willing and able to work. Now, I want you to follow me now. Every year, 40,000 students leave the high school system. That's 40,000 people entering the workforce. You can call it that every year. And then you have people who are leaving the workforce at age 60, 65, and so on. There are more people entering every year than those who are leaving. My thought on the matter is that, as Bianca said, you have to focus on that. We have to forget about the boomers. They're not going to drive, and just apologies, and with all due respect to any boomer listening to this, we cannot rely on them on their way out to change a process that's going to impact us coming forward. We have to be the ones who do it. The people who are entering the workforce, the people who are in the 30s, the 20s, and so on. Those are the people who are going to be stuck with these inefficient processes for years. So we have to be convicted to change it. Now, here's how I look at digital transformation. I want to leave this with you. Imagine you have a car, and the car is very inefficient, and it's running, for example, and it charges you $20,000 a month or a week to fill the gas tank. And you continue this inefficient car and drive it every single day and fill it up. You're fine with that. But one day your son comes home and says, Daddy, there's no way you should be spending $20,000 a week on this car. And he sends it to the place to get it serviced, and he changes something. For example, he changes the way the fuel runs something. I'm not sure about cars. I don't know about cars, but follow the argument. You change that one time and you invest that money, and all of a sudden you're paying $5,000 per week on the gas. That is what the result of digital transformation is. That is what we need to be able to quantify. That's what we need to put in front of our bosses and so on. And that is the justification. I want to say something, moderator. I went to a public institution once, and I saw a lady sending out 1,000 letters, 1,000 of them. Follow me now. And I sat with her and I taught her the concept of mail merge on Google. You follow? And she was able to send out the 1,000 letters after 15 minutes of customizing the template. She didn't know what to do with the rest of her time, cutting the wastage of productivity and so on. So the point is that to digitally transform these companies is to make them more efficient if done correctly. And if you make them more efficient, you save money. And if you save money, you can pay the people more. So this chicken and egg business that we're trying to figure out, it's simple. You follow what I'm saying? Quantify the value of transforming these processes and then shift that to the people who are working. The last thing I'll leave with you is this. The best way for a company to future-proof themselves is to invest in what's called institutional memory. A lot of companies have employees for 10, 20 years. If they leave, they're gone with all the information. You have to find a way to store that. AI gives us an incredible opportunity to do it. One-on-one working on something where we want to create an employee who never leaves. Just imagine if all your processes, knowledge, did I say knowledge? Sorry. Your knowledge, know-how, that sort of thing is retained by the company so that whosoever comes, they learn that. And when you leave, that retains and the next person learns it. These are ways we can do that. And this is why we've partnered with Simtai to make what we call a cybersecurity course and a data protection act available to businesses so that they can actually know these things, because your weakest link, a chain weakest link, right? That's the point of vulnerability. And if you don't protect that, you're in problem. So those are some things I want to leave. I know it's a lot, but I just want to leave with this. The numbers. quantify, fix, and then reroute that savings. And that's the way you do it.
You know, Ricardo, before you go, I would want to respond back to you and say what you said was so powerful for me. I love the way you speak; it's great. So, and I would tell people buy the man shares. You know, remind people that it's possible to get a piece of what he's already saying and own it. But the thing is, for me, and what I realize, there's something in the comments that says, like many other nations, can benefit from embracing basically collaboration between government, private sector, educational institutions, and then the community. I really believe, speaking to other entrepreneurs, part of the problem for middle management, some senior, some lower level, not enough conversations are being had across different sectors, across people with different experiences, to basically build awareness in the general population, general management, general this, about the possibilities or even the language to use. And so not all the time is the person who's selling the technology to have the words that you're using, which is why you founded and run your own company. And I think that's very important, like why conversations like this are important, and, you know, just getting awareness done. If you go to California, just for even 10 seconds and talk to a random dude in a cafe, the language that he uses is so much more in sync with another random dude in a cafe 10 doors down, because there's so much knowledge share. And we have to kind of get more of that, because I have experienced, as I said, even with the Keys to LATAM thing, what I saw was that there's so many players that want things to happen. They don't know how to make it happen. They don't know what to do. And they have these individual ideas that are not necessarily working, and simple things. For example, take the embassy of the Dominican Republic, who has, you know, super enhanced the amount of exports that Jamaica does to the DR. And by that, I mean they doubled it. So they moved from like 1.2 million to 2.6. But in reality, she also moved their exports from about 50-something million to about 136 million US in like 3 years. So she also doubled hers. And what she did was collaborate with the journalists from their countries. So every single month, there were articles written on all newspapers saying things like, Jamaica's the best place to invest. Jamaica's the best place to take your products. It's the best partner. So the whole country started thinking about it. And individual entrepreneurs, because the country, the journalists were doing it, the government was doing it, other private businesses were, as soon as they came in, like, guys, look how much money I made, woo! They all started doing it, and yes, it becomes a reality. Now, I see in our country, it's the opposite. Somebody does something at work, and it's like, nobody talk about it. You know, we see it a little bit. I think the young stock guys are the best at getting people excited, because at least they're making money and posting their reports on Instagram or whatever, and that's getting young kids being like this. But in general, if you want a community to be excited, you have to actually share information. Like if, you know, GK is doing this project, journalists have to start talking about it and say, how does it work? How does it do this? You have to have forums. I think about football in the UK. Football managers have clubs where they talk about all the choices that they make every year with a review, and that becomes kind of communal knowledge. I think that's the most important thing if you want to get digital transformation. Like I have a policy that I would recommend to everybody. I don't believe in full remote. Not in Jamaica, and that's my personal choice, because I think that a lot of Jamaican kids are distracted and need that attention. But I put a flexi-work system. I think it works. The flexi-work system is very simple. Every Wednesday, we work from home, everyone in the office, right? Every Wednesday. I chose that day because the middle of the week, it means if there's any issues, I can still cash on a Thursday, and it doesn't feel like a weekend. But I also give 72 other work from home days, which you can choose. So it's like a couple other days per week. So you can choose, you put in an application. I've had way more retention of employees since I put that in. They love it. And it's just a simple thing to do. You just cut the office on a Wednesday, you do a little Zoom meeting, and there's that. Things like that, if you talk about, hey, I tried this, it worked, and you do this, you can, you know, it will encourage the community. But again, in America, you can find dozens of articles of small business, medium business, large business, talking about what they do. There's Harvard Business, there's this, there's all that. If you go in Jamaica, again, you don't find the same level of openness about information and the choices. And I think that's the thing that can really get people to be doing things, because they'll see the benefit. They'll be like, oh, that man spent $10,000 US and it saved him this much money. I should probably do it too, because guess what? If he's just like me, and if we don't do that, then you're going to still have that kind of the fear and distrust of IT.
Thanks so much, Craig. So I think there needs to, what our panelists have been saying is that with digital transformation, there needs to be a level of openness. There needs to be a change in culture. And if we focus on the negative, then that is what we'll get. We know that we've experienced brain drain for a while, but we have to focus on the positives of the workforce staying, and that is culture. Craig said he does flexi work. Ricardo from 101 said he's completely remote. He watches the goal. He doesn't have any time to watch who clock in. It is goal oriented. So probably this is what we're doing at the Jamaica Technology and Digital Alliance, building that community where we can share ideas and express, and possibly you in your organization can go to your boss and say, listen, this culture currently isn't working. Let us try something new. Because at the end of the day, it is about saving, it's about the processes, it's about transforming, and that is going to take some time, but we have to be open to these new ideas. Ricardo is saying Western Union lookout upgrades, VM is doing work. We saw Craig with the keys to Latin America conference really showcasing, doing something really new. I don't think as long as I've been in Jamaica, I've heard about a keys to Latin America conference showing about export and bringing those people together. So we have to focus. And we have to look on what Ricardo said from GK. What does the customer want? Not what we want internally, Craig said it, the internal customer, as well as the customer outside, to drive those processes. Junior mentioned that, listen, digital transformation, ensuring you have your cybersecurity, ensuring that you have certain things that you definitely need to do, because how are you protecting that data? Not having ensuring you having a password manager, ensuring you have a VPN, that sort of thing. But I just want to lead everybody here because I think this is such a robust discussion. I think possibly this is something we may have to parlay over into BizTech conference, so persons can be aware of what is happening in the space. Just want to leave final words, starting with you. Ricardo had such powerful things to say. I tried to condense it, but just a final word from each of you as, we do some highlights. Bianca?
All right. The key thing for me that has really come out of the discussion, and it's one of the topics that I find myself discussing quite a bit whenever I'm in conversations around digital transformation, is the idea of mindset, right? It requires you to change the way you think about your business. You have to change the way you're thinking about, the people in your businesses. You have to change the way you're thinking about your customers. Ricardo talked earlier about thinking customer first, so working from the outside in. It means that you have to start putting data first, privacy first. Those are all mindset changes. We're talking about things like resistance to change. That, again, it's a mindset thing. When you start talking about generational differences, that's one of the big blocks, because the mindset that we see in the boomers, who are, for the most part, retired unless they're legislators or board members, through the Gen Xers, who are more or less heading a lot of the major companies now, down through the millennials, who are the bulk of our workforce, into, the Gen Zs and then the Gen Alphas that are coming behind them. The biggest difference is one of mindset. It's the way that they approach problems, life, work. And when you're talking about digital transformation, it really does require you to change your mindset. It's uncomfortable for anyone who did not grow up with technology. It's going to be uncomfortable, whether they are in the business or they are customers. For those of us who are already in that space, it often means having to change the way that we work, change what we're accustomed to doing. And that really, for me, is a big part of digital transformation work, right? That's where the change happens. Because if you're able to change your mindset, change your thinking, then the buy-in follows behind it. The participation, the collaboration, getting the investment, getting your C-suite on board, all of that comes if you're able to get your mindsets changed. It's not easy, but that's really the key point for me. So that's where I'll leave it for today.
All right. Thank you so much, Bianca. Ricardo, one-on-one.
Yeah,
Final thoughts.
my final thoughts on this is, first of all, thanks for everyone joining. But I tell you an exercise I did at the start of this financial year. So as you know, we went public last year, and the goal was to make $400 million in revenues. I calculated what is the value of my time. I work 250 days minimum a year, 8 hours minimum a day, and I calculated that to be $200,000 for every hour I spend doing something that is not contributing to that 400 million. And when I quantify it down to that science, anything that I do that doesn't make sense or advances that, I try to cut it out. For example, this idea of going to physical meetings, good luck, because that takes out 30 to 45 minutes of my time already. You follow what I'm saying? And these are the things we have to look at. I want to leave with you. Quantify it, use that as a justification, and use the savings and split it among yourselves. Do what you want with it. But inefficiency costs money, and you need to calculate what it costs money. And transforming those processes can save you good dollars, more value for your shareholders. Thank you.
You're muted. You're muted. I don't think I can hear you.
Forgive me. Had a technical challenge a minute ago. Ricardo, GK Finance.
Yes.
Your final thoughts.
Yeah. So the first thing I'd want to share with persons, this whole discussion about people and the need for change and the talent that you have available to you. I've actually found that Jamaica is very blessed with talent that's able to execute on digital, right? And I've encountered that across several organizations and with my team right now, no different. Don't worry about the brain drain, right? People will come and people will go and they'll move on. It is more about how you invest in the people in your organization that makes them ready to execute on these digital initiatives. And for the persons who will be on the operational side of it, for them to understand what role or what part they will play in the change. As it relates to how you decide what to invest in, if you can't speak to a senior leader, a CEO, somebody with capital in one discussion over, say, 5 minutes, and be able to explain to them what problem you're solving, for which customer, how that's going to affect the business in quantifiable sums, you shouldn't be doing that thing, right? These things where we write business cases that are 100, 200 pages, and nobody can explain why we're actually doing something is the wrong answer. If something is very clear, I like how Ricardo put it, you have to be able to measure what the impact of this thing is on the business, and then you know that you can pursue that. For businesses that are wondering, can I afford this investment in digital? Is this something that I should be doing now or not? I would say to you, ask Kodak Camera, right? Ask the many businesses that at some point they were flying high and they thought that they would always be around. And sometimes you look and you say, well, my competitor is the guy down the street. I can see his shop door. He's the guy that I'm competing with, and I'm going to try and do things differently to compete with him. And as Craig said, you're really not competing with him. You're competing with a platform that's coming out of Asia that's offering services that are relevant to your customers. So investment in digital is not a nice to have. It's a must have. But be sure that the thing that you're investing in is worthwhile, is going to have the impact on your business, and make sure you invest in your people on the journey.
Thank you so much, Ricardo Banks Jr. Darrell, followed up by Craig.
Great. Thank you so much. I mean, there's a lot to unpack from this discussion, and I certainly think a part 2, maybe 3, 4, 5 is necessary, because that's what you get when you touch the topic of digital transformation. There's a lot that we can actually take. My top 3 takeaways from this is, first and foremost, embracing change. I mean, we're in the digital age, and the only thing that is constant is change. So businesses must adapt and evolve with technological advancements. And those who do that successfully are the ones that will thrive. And those who resist it will find themselves in ready to serve in a world that no longer exists. So that is key. As Ricardo GK says, the Kodak example, very powerful. Technology is about people. That's my second takeaway. It's very simple. Tech is great, but it's really the people who make the real difference. So we have to ensure that we take good care of them and look at where they are, meet them where they are. We touched on the topic of brain drain. I mean, Optimity Group had that challenge in terms of looking for where talent exists, recognize that there's a big gap. And we took on a bold initiative to create a very specific, precise, and rigorous internship program to build cybersecurity professionals and engineers. And that got the recognition of even CompTIA. So if you Google Purple Team and CompTIA, you'll see more about what I'm talking about, because we're highlighted as a success story there. But instead of sitting and worried about the issue of brain drain, certain things it makes no sense, you fight it, you got to embrace it. Because one of the things that we have been able to do successfully is to leverage that. We have, for instance, teams on the ground that we developed here in Jamaica that we now export, say, to Guyana. We recently set up a team in the United States, Canada, Ghana, and we're looking at aggressive regional expansion where that's concerned. So most times when people ask me what is Optimity Group about, I say, do you want the business response or the personal response? I say it's really a personal development company under the guise of a tech company, because really that's what we have been doing for some time now, investing and developing our local talent and the people. So recognizing that in the realm of digital transformation, it's people, you got to put them front and center, very key. And the final point I want to leave on is, for any digital transformation initiative to be successful, you have to build trust. Just like in any relationship, trust is key. An Optimity Group, we have learned that when people trust the tech and the team behind it, everything works better. You find our customers are more responsive, customers are more willing to engage, essentially. So it's really keeping these three things in mind that can really drive the success of any digital transformation initiative. So those are the three takeaways I'd want to share.
Right. Thank you so much, Junior. Craig, so to hear
From
your
me,
points.
I will say there are a couple of new things I've added to the table with the Key Latam conference, which I shared some of the young entrepreneurs. There's an idea of the salon, and the salon is a dinner or a round table. And I had a round table at the ambassador's house with a couple of business owners, a couple of export managers, Chris Williams from Proven, Brian Jardim, Anu Shandaram, my dad was there, Sidney Thwaites was there, a couple of people like that, Stephen Dawkins from Wisinco, the export manager, I think, is Leorani from Grace. And some of the guys know each other, some of the guys went to school with each other, some of the guys know of each other, but not everybody knows everyone in deep detail at the table that was there. And they got to talk about export, and some people are exporting, some people aren't, some people had some fears, and you got to hear from these people about their failures and the successes. And at the end of the day, people that I didn't know before wrote me a check to give me a sponsorship for the conference because they saw what was possible. I think that is a very powerful thing. I think that there are a lot of embassies in Jamaica, specifically the Dominican ambassador. I think the Brazilian ambassador is one of them. I think the Mexican ambassador is one of them. Those three are very open. The Panamanian ambassador is one of them. And you can talk to them to kind of facilitate some conversations about things changing in Jamaica. And they can also write letters and invite people who you want to talk to kind of do something like that. Those personal conversations with about 25 people can really create real stakeholder change, and you can have government people there too. So I think that's one thing. I say with Jamaica technology, and I also say like Project Star specifically, which is run by Keith Duncan, That man don't care what other people saying about Jamaica, if it's possible or not possible, if Jamaica can change. I'm just saying, "I'm change Jamaica." That's what he says, and guess what? He just does it on his own pay, writes his own checks, and guess what? At the end of the day, people start writing checks too because they see it happening. You have to start. I personally spent $8 million of my own cash when I did the math on it, just real cash on Keys to Latam conference before I got any sponsorship checks. Because if I didn't believe in the thing, how are other people going to believe in it? The moment you do something and you do it well, other people will start. I've been offered now for the Prime Minister to open the Keys to Latam conference next year, and they want to invite another Prime Minister, and they want to spend tons of money now to fly out all sorts of people, which is going to make Jamaica really believe it's possible. But it started with one person believing. So I would say, like, for this technology thing, we have to have more conversations like this, in more places, in different formats. You have to also jump on social media with things like TikTok, with things like Instagram, which can get the regular people to see the content so they can feel excited about it too. You have to have more mixers and conversations. You have to use organizations like the PSOJ. You have to get the government involved. And you have to get more people feeling like it's possible. And then you'll see more work happening. If we just sit down there and we're just negative, then I believe nothing will happen. But if we get like, Rickardo, young Rickardo, and boss Rickardo, aka the Gen X, not the baby boomer, because most of you guys are Gen X, right? In a room talking with some other young guys and young women and older senior people, and we get them talking and showing, hey, I'm doing this at GraceKennedy, and a man from JPC, I'm doing this too. And then the CEO kind of there too, and then say, wait, this is possible. That will create so much change. It'll be absolutely ridiculous because those people will leave from those spaces and places empowered. And then you just do some social media coverage of it afterwards and make sure you get the journalists to write about it. So they all think, hey, it's possible. If we don't do it, then I think then you won't see the implementation. And the last point I would say is that what America did is that they wrote into the Constitution they need to promote science and literacy. So they did have a budget to actually promote in movies science and showing people win science fairs and all these things like that. So we do need to work with the government to kind of have some money and funding to promote ideas around digital change. But I don't think if we don't reach out to them and we don't show them how it's possible, we don't start ourselves. I mean, I'm sure if GK would write a check to someone like Capri or someone, like that to kind of show a research paper. But it's just young people and other people need to start it like how you're doing now and then ask them for a check right after. Say, look, I did it already. Write me a check and I'll do some more. That's basically my thought.
Thank you so much, Craig. Thank you all to our panelists. And that is why we at the Jamaica Technology and Digital Alliance, formerly Jamaica Computer Society, want to have discussions like this, virtual and in person, to really change the ecosystem, to really make those processes and to showcase the tech talent within Jamaica. We know there'll be brain drain, but guess what? We have the talent and it is time we own it and we showcase our abilities and what we can do. We know Ricardo Allen from GK is doing it. Bianca is doing it at VM. Ricardo Ebanks is doing it at GK Financial. Craig Powe, Adtelligent, putting his money where his mouth is and believing. Optimity Group is doing it with the CompTIA. And we at the Jamaica Technology and Digital Alliance are doing it. We have some exciting things ahead. Just touching on it briefly, the Jamaica Cyber Skills Initiative. Look out for that. For Cybersecurity Month in October. Also look out for BizTech 2023 Tech Fusion, where we will be blending innovation, strategy, and business, November 14th to 15th. If you are not a member, what are you waiting on? Join our newsletter, Start the Change. Join that conversation. I am your host, Alexia Beckford, Program Manager. We look forward to hearing from you. We want to see you as we make that change. Thanks everyone for joining. Thank you so much, our panelists. It was a pleasure having you. And have a great night. We will see you shortly. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Bye, everyone. Have a wonderful time.
Thank you so much, Craig.